Okay, in this video we're going to write a two-player Pong game, and the variables have already been declared. We've got game states. Actually, I don't have a splash screen on here, but we're not going to worry about that. And then a screen variable that gets initialized, and basically, I have to write the rest of it. So I want the ball to be 2% of the screen width on both sides. So I want the screen width times 2 divided by 100. And if I do this, 2 and 100 are both integers, so I'm going to get an integer answer. If I tried multiplying by 0.02f, then I'd have to, I'd get a float for an answer, and I'd have to convert it back into an int by putting parenthesis over here. So I think it's easier just to do it this way. Don't have to do any typecasting. And then I want the ball to be the same on both sides, so I'm just going to set this equal to ball rectangle dot width, which I've already set. Okay, position the ball in the middle of the screen. Well, the ball rectangle X is going to be, the middle of the screen is going to be the screen width divided by 2, but I want to subtract half of the ball width, so minus ball rectangle dot width divided by 2. And Y is going to be the screen height divided by 2 minus the ball rectangle dot height divided by 2. Okay. And I want the ball speed to be 1/120th of the screen width, so it's going to be ball screen dot width divided by 120, and this is going to be the same. Okay, and I want the paddle 1 rectangle width to be 2.5% of the screen width. So screen width times, and now if I multiply by 2.5 and divide by 100, I've got the same problem I had before with getting a non-integer for results. So I'm going to multiply by 25 and then divide it by 1,000, which is the same thing. Okay, and the height is going to be 15% of the screen height. So I want to take screen dot height times 15 divided by 100. And the X location for player 1 is going to be on the left side, so that's going to just be screen dot left. And the Y is going to be, let's position it in the middle of the screen, so it's going to be screen dot top plus half of the screen width, screen height rather. And then I got to subtract half of the height of the paddle. So paddle rectangle dot height divided by 2, and then down here the width and height are going to be the same, so I can just set this equal to paddle 1 dot width, and I can set this equal to paddle 1 dot height. And the X for this is going to be way over on the right side, so it's going to be screen dot right minus the width of the paddle 2 rectangle. Paddle 2 rectangle dot width. And then the Y is going to be the same as, this is also going to be the center of the screen vertically, so I can just set that equal to the one I've already calculated, which is paddle 1 rectangle dot Y. Okay. Now let's go scroll down here to draw, and I've got some draw commands that were already built in for you, and we are going to have to make some changes down here depending on the state of the game. But right now it's just going to draw everything. It's going to draw the ball, it's going to draw paddle 1, paddle 2, and it's going to put the scores up on the top. So I like to know if what I've got so far is working, rather than writing hundreds of lines of code and then testing it and finding out that it doesn't work. If something doesn't work right now, I only have a few places to look because I've only written code in a few places. So there we go. It looks like I picked a square for the ball rather than a round image, but that looks pretty much like it's in the middle of the screen. It looks like my paddles are in the middle of the screen on both the left and the right edge. So I think we're okay so far. So I probably am not going to have to go back and do any debugging up here. Okay, now the speed of the ball, I'm sorry, the speed of the paddle is going to be, let's take the screen dot height divided by 60, and I'm sorry, it's not moving the x direction at all. It's only moving in the y direction. We're talking about the paddle. So that's going to be screen dot height divided by 60. And the reason I said not quite in there is because it would take 1 second to do that if the paddle was only 1 pixel. But the paddle is actually going to be 15% of the height of the screen. So it's going to take a little bit less than that because I'm not moving all the way from the bottom to the top. I'm moving from, you know, the bottom of the paddle. It will be on the bottom of the screen, but when I move it all the way up to the top, the bottom of the paddle is not on the top of the screen. So it's going to actually take a little less than 1 second to do this. And then I've got the score vectors, and I'm going to put player 1 on the top left. And this is just a guess right now. I mean, I could go in and figure out precisely how far I need to put that, but we're not going to worry about that on this particular program. So if the 15 doesn't work out, then fine, we'll adjust it. Okay. I've already written code to load the content for you, and you know, I might want to change the ball here to something that's round instead of square. And then we've got to put some code in here to update paddle 1. Okay, so I want to update paddle 1. I want to move it. Okay, well, how do I move it? First of all, let's see if we're actually reading the paddle somewhere. I'm reading gamepad 1 down here. I'm not reading gamepad 2. I'm not sure why I left that one out. Whoops. Okay, so in update, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out what game state I'm in. Maybe I could have made this into a method. And then if I'm in the playing state, I'm going to update the ball. If I'm in the paused or the playing state, I'm going to update the paddles. And so if I'm playing, I'm updating the ball and both paddles, because playing is here as well. And if I'm paused, I'm not updating the ball. I'm just going to update the paddles. Okay. So how do I know if I need to move paddle 1? Well, if pad 1 dot, we're going to use the thumbstick, and we're going to move it in the y direction. So on thumbsticks dot left dot y is greater than 0. That means they want to move it up. And to move it up, I need to take the paddle 1 rectangle dot y and subtract the paddle speed dot y value. Okay. Now, if they move it the other direction, if they push the thumbstick in the other direction, whoops. If it's less than 0, then paddle 1 rectangle dot y plus equals paddle speed. Okay, and paddle speed is a vector. Vectors are floating point values, not integers, so I have to convert this into an int. And if I do that, then I should get rid of those red wavy lines. Okay, now did it go off the top? Okay, if so, bring it back. I can't let the paddle go off the top of the screen. So how do I know if it went off the top? Well, if the the y coordinate of paddle 1 dot y is less than screen dot top, then set it equal to screen dot top. That's the highest it can go. And and so that will bring it back, and that's all I really need to worry about there. Did it go off the bottom? If paddle1 rectangle dot y, let's not do dot y, let's do dot bottom is greater than screen dot bottom, then bring it back. So paddle1 rectangle dot y equals, and now I've got to do the bottom of the screen minus the height of the paddle. So screen minus, okay. And I've got another method here for paddle 2. Now the code is going to be exactly the same, except instead of pad 1 I'm going to use pad 2, and instead of paddle 1 rectangle I'm going to use paddle 2 rectangle. So let's go and copy this. You always need to be careful when you do this because it's easy to make a mistake. And I'm going to select all of this code here, and I'm going to do a Control H, which is find and replace. And I want to find 1 and I want to replace it with and I want to replace it with 2, and I did the selection first, so it's only going to do the selection, and then I want to replace all, and I had 10 occurrences. Some of those were in comments. I guess one of them was in the comments, and the rest were in the code. Okay, now since okay, I'm in the splash screen state. And what I have to do to get out of that state, even though there's no splash screen, is I have to get into the pause state, I have to push the start button on gamepad 1. So if I run the program and I'm starting off in the splash state, and I try to use my thumbstick, nothing happens here. Now if I hit the start button, and now I use my thumbstick on pad 1, it's working, and if I use my thumbstick on pad 2, that's working as well. So I got both of them working, and it does look like it takes about a second to move from the bottom of the screen to the top of the screen. So that part looks like it's good. Now, one question you might have is, if we're doing these two methods here, and they're almost exactly the same, isn't there a way that you can get by writing less code? And there is, and we'll take a look at that, not in this video, but real soon. Okay, now we need to update the ball. Okay, and I've got some comments here, so you want to plan ahead and figure out what it is you want to do, and those will be your comments. And to move the ball dot x has to get added on the ball speed dot x, and ball rectangle dot y has to get added on the ball speed dot y. And again, rectangles are ints, vectors are floats, so I got to convert to int. And did the ball go off its top? If so, bring it back and reverse its y direction. So how do I know if it went off the top? Well, if ball rectangle dot top is less than screen dot top, then okay, it says do two things. It says bring it back. So it's possible that depending on the speed and the starting location, that it didn't just touch the top of the screen, but it actually went a little bit over the top of the screen, and so I don't want that to happen. I want to make sure it stays on the screen. So I'm going to bring the ball rectangle back. It said it's y equal to screen dot top. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse its y direction. So that means that the ball speed dot y is going to be equal to minus ball speed dot y. Okay. And I think that takes care of that. Now I want to see if it went off the bottom. Okay, how do you know if it went off the bottom? Well, it went off the bottom if the bottom of its rectangle is below the screen's rectangle. So if ball rectangle dot bottom is less than then I got to do the same two things. Okay, I've got to set bring it back, so that means I'm going to change its y value. I set equal to the bottom of the screen minus the height of the ball. And then I'm going to reverse ball speed again. Okay. And now this is only going to happen when I'm in the playing state. So let's click on the start button here. Let's give it a try. See if we can get the ball to move. And now let's push on start. Well, that moved pretty fast. Let's do something I don't think is right here. And did I initialize the ball? Let's go back up here. And where did I say to position the ball in the middle of the screen? So it's going to be the screen width divided by 2 minus the ball rectangle width divided by 2. And the ball rectangle. Okay. And the ball speed is going to be the screen width divided by 120. And gee, that looks right. So on every tick, the ball X gets updated by the ball speed, and the ball Y gets updated. And not see anything wrong here. Something is clearly wrong. Okay, one thing that I think I want to change is I only want to draw the ball if I'm in the playing state. Okay. And I want to draw the paddles. Whoops, I always do that. Paused or and I want to do both of these things down here. Okay, now let's run it and see what happens. I start off in the splash state even though there's nothing. Okay, so basically right now the splash state is when nothing gets drawn. Now I'm going to push the start button, and now I can move these, and I should be in the pause state. When I'm in the pause state, I should not be updating the ball. So let's stop here. And so I update the ball if game state equals playing. Let me see if it's possible if I'm going directly from splash to playing. And so I want to look at the current state has to be pressed, and the previous state has to be released. And wrong. There, that should make a significant difference. Now let's run the program. Okay, now I'm in the pause state. It should respond to both of my paddles here. And I'm going to press start. Okay. And I've still got a problem when I get in the playing state. So let's go back and look at our code. So I'm in the playing state. I want to update the ball. And when I'm in the playing state, I want to update the paddles. And when I'm in the playing state, I want to draw the ball and I want to draw the paddles. Okay. So let's go back and look where I'm updating the ball. This is changing the speed. checking to see if it goes off the top, and this is not checking to see if it goes off the bottom because I have my arrow turned around the wrong way. So there we go. Now let's give it a try. Okay, press start again, and okay, and now we haven't done anything with going back to the pause state, so it's only going to do the ball once. So we need to do a few other things here, but it appears to be working so far. So did it go off the right side? If so, there's a point for player 1. Okay, so I don't know if it went off the right side. Well, if the right edge of the rectangle, ball rectangle, is greater than, I can say greater than or equal to, I think, although 1 pixel is probably not going to make a whole lot of difference. If the ball rectangle dot right is greater than screen dot right, then player 1 score plus plus. Okay, and I want my game state to be set equal to paused. Okay. Now, what if it goes off the other side? If it goes off the left side, then the ball rectangle dot left has got to be less than or equal to screen dot left. And you notice that this time I remembered to turn my arrows around between here and here. Okay, so player 2 score plus plus and game state equals paused. Okay. Now, so I'll take us back to the paused state. We're also going to have to worry about where the ball goes. Now, we're only doing this stuff here. Actually, we may not have to worry about where the ball goes because we're only drawing the ball if we're in the playing state. So it may still have coordinates on the screen, but we don't care because we're not drawing it. So I think we may be all right there. Now, did the ball collide with paddle 1? Okay, well, how do you know if it collided? Well, their rectangles intersect. So if paddle 1 rectangle dot intersects ball rectangle, then I want to bounce it off. So I want to reverse the x direction. So ball speed dot x equals minus ball speed dot x. Okay, and then to make sure it doesn't get stuck in the paddle, we're going to move the ball out to the edge of the paddle. So it's x coordinate equal to screen dot right minus the width of the ball, the width of the paddle. Wait a second, we're on paddle 1. I was on the wrong side here. So I just want the ball to be screen dot left plus the width of paddle 1. Okay. And that'll get it outside the paddle, so I don't have to worry about it getting stuck in the paddle. And then to collide with paddle 2, that'd be over on the right side. So paddle 2 intersects with the ball then ball speed dot x equals minus ball speed and then I got to position the ball to the left of the paddle. So ball rectangle dot x equals, it's going to be the screen dot right minus the width of the paddle 2 minus the width of the ball. And that should get the ball bouncing off of the paddles now. So let's try this. See if it works before we go any further. So I'm pressing start again. Okay, it's bouncing off that paddle, it's bouncing off that one. And it looks to be working. And even updated the score for me there. Okay. Now I don't have any way of serving the ball. Okay. Now what we haven't checked for so far is how do you get the ball served after the first point is scored or after any point is scored. And we probably want the user to press like their start button or something like that. But it seems to me that we probably need two paused states. One state to indicate that we're waiting for player 1 to press start, and one where we're indicating we want player 2 to push start. So player, at the beginning of the game, we're just going to assume it's player 1 that starts. After that, it'll be whoever won the last point. Okay. So now I've got some places down here where I'm going to have some errors, I think. Yeah. So to go from the splash screen, we're going to go to paused player 1. He's always going to start the game. I don't know if that's fair, but that's the way we're going to do it. And if we're in paused player 1 and player 1 pushes his start button, then we're going to go to the playing state. Okay. Now we need to do the same thing for player 2. Then we want to go to the playing state as well. Okay. Now we also need to make some changes down here. So if we're in either pause state, so if we're in the paused waiting for player 1 or paused waiting for player 2, or we're playing, we want to update the paddles, we want to update the ball if we're playing now. When do you want to put the ball back on the screen? Well, you want to put the ball back on the screen when the player indicates that he wants to serve. So he's going to indicate he wants to serve when he pushes the start button here, and we go back into the playing state. So we need to do more than one thing here, which means we need the curly brackets. And we're going to need the same thing down here. Okay. So what do I want to do? I want to, now let's say, so this is where player 1 has just scored a point, and his ball has just gone off the right side of the screen. So my speed is still correct. The ball will still be moving the correct direction, so I don't need to mess with the speed here. What I do need to do is I need to mess with the position of the ball. I need to put the ball back in the middle of the screen. And just to make it a little more interesting, we will leave it at the y-coordinate where it was when it went off the screen. We could also do a random number for the y-coordinate, but just to keep things simple here, we're going to set the ball rectangle equal to left plus width divided by 2 minus half the width of the ball. And then down here, basically it's the exact same code, but the ball will be pointing or moving in another direction. Okay. And I think that may do it. Let's click on the start button here. And no, that's not going to do it. Okay, I missed some of my paused statements. Okay, so I'm looking for it. Okay, so if it went off the right side, then we're waiting for player 1. If it went off the left side, then we're waiting for player 2. And then I've got okay, that one should be right. And then if game state equals paused player 1, or game state pause player 2 down here when we're drawing as well. Okay, now let's run the program. Okay, this is the splash. Player 1's going to press start now, and both players can move their paddles. And now player 1's going to press start again, and we're going to let it go off screen over here, and player 1 scores. Now player 1 is going to press start, and yep, whoops, missed it. Okay, player 1 is going to press start again. Now we're going to let player 2 score a point. Okay, and now player 1, I'm going to press start for player 1 and nothing happens. Now I'll press start for player 2 and we get a serve. Okay, and now player 1 presses start and nothing happens, but player 2 presses start and something happens. Okay, player 2 presses start again. Now we're going to let it go off the screen on that side. Now player 2 presses start, nothing happens, and now player 1 presses start and we get a serve. Okay, now the one thing we did not do is we did not do a game over. So how do we know if the game is over? Well, it's going to be when we find out the ball went off the screen and the player has reached the number of points to win. Okay, so we got a constant up there called points to win. And let's see, did it go off the right side? Yes. And did it go off the left side? Yes. So now I'm going to go to the pause state, but if player 1 score is equal to points to win, I think was what we called that. Yeah, points to win. Then game state is game over. And why doesn't like that? Because I put 2 equal signs in instead of 1. It's an assignment statement. It's not a Boolean. Okay. And then down here, basically the same thing. And make sure when you do this, don't forget to change the 1 to a 2. And make sure when you do this that you put the test here to see if the game is over after this, because otherwise I'll change it to, if this instruction was, down here at the bottom below like that, then it would always come out here in the pause state, and I'd go to game over for a few nanoseconds, then I'd go into the pause player 1 state and the game would never end. So let's undo that. So the order makes a difference. Make sure you pay attention to the order that you write statements in. And now if we run the program, and I'm just going to let player 1 win here. And the game is over. I don't have any splash or anything up there saying that the game is over, who won, or anything like that, but that's relatively easy to do. So we're just going to stop right there.